My boss fired me in front of the entire team, and he thought he'd gotten away with it. He was standing outside the HR office, looking smug, completely unaware that his career was about to implode. He assumed I was just another employee he could discard, but he had no idea what I was about to do. This wasn't just about getting fired. It was about revealing a truth he had desperately tried to bury. He thought this was his victory lap. But for me, it was just the beginning. I'd been with the company for years, always the first one in and the last one out. I genuinely loved my job and was proud of the work I did. For a long time, everything was great. My performance reviews were stellar, and I was on a clear path for promotion. But everything changed after the last quarterly all-hands meeting. The CEO gave me a public shout-out for a project I led, praising my dedication and results. I felt amazing, but when I looked over at my manager, his smile was tight, almost forced. That's when things started to get weird. It began with small things. An important email I was waiting for never arrived. My manager claimed he never got it, but the sender confirmed it was sent to both of us. Then, a task that was clearly assigned to a colleague was suddenly dropped on my plate at the last minute, with an impossible deadline. I'd asked my manager for clarification, and he'd just shrugged and say, "You need to be more on top of your responsibilities." It felt like I was constantly being set up to fail. I tried to talk to him about it, but he dismissed my concerns, making me feel like I was just being paranoid. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The positive and supportive work environment one once knew was slowly turning into a place of constant anxiety and confusion. The final straw came when I was assigned the most challenging project of my career. It was a high-stakes client presentation, and the timeline was incredibly tight. I poured everything I had into it, working late nights, weekends, and meticulously triple-checking every detail. I was exhausted, but I was also incredibly proud of the final result. It was flawless. The day of the presentation, my manager called a quick pre-meeting. He told me he'd handle delivery to the client and that my part was done. I thought it was strange, but I trusted him. Later that afternoon, he called a surprise team meeting. He started by talking about the success of the client presentation, and then he pulled up my slides. But he presented the entire project as his own work. He didn't mention my name once. I was stunned, but I didn't say anything, planning to address it with him privately. But I never got the chance. Before I could even process the credit stealing, he looked directly at me and said, "And on that note of team performance, we're making some changes. Unfortunately, your role is being eliminated, effective immediately." The entire room went silent. My coworkers stared at me, then at him, their faces a mix of shock and confusion. He just stood there with a cold, indifferent look on his face. He said HR would escort me out to collect my things. I was completely blindsided. I felt humiliated, confused, and utterly betrayed. One minute, I was a star employee, and the next, I was being publicly discarded, like I meant nothing. It was in that moment of public humiliation that something inside me snapped. This wasn't just a layoff. This was a personal attack, and I was going to find out why. As Acha stood by, I was given 10 minutes to pack my personal belongings. I logged into my computer one last time to save a few personal files I had stored on the desktop. My email and other systems were supposed to be locked, but for some reason, my access to the shared drive was still active. As I was navigating to my personal folder, I noticed a folder I'd never seen before, labeled with a strange project code. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on it. Inside were documents and spreadsheets that made no sense at first. There were budget sheets with numbers that seemed way off from the official reports I'd seen. I saw expense reports from my manager that were creative, to say the least. But the real bombshell was a subfolder filled with email chains. It wasn't just about me. I saw messages where he'd taken credit for other team members' work, misrepresented project statuses to upper management, and even blamed his own mistakes on junior employees who were later let go. There were multiple instances of him manipulating data to make his team's performance look better than it was, while quietly pushing out anyone who questioned him. It was a clear, documented pattern of deception. He hadn't just stolen my work. He was systematically sabotaging his own team for personal gain. My firing wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the latest move in his long-running game. My heart was pounding. This was bigger than I ever imagined. I quickly and discreetly copied the entire folder onto a personal USB drive. I knew I couldn't just walk away. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about integrity and protecting the colleagues I was leaving behind. The first person I called was a trusted coworker, Sarah, someone I'd worked with for years. I met her for coffee and cautiously explained what I'd found without showing her the files just yet. Her jaw dropped. She told me she'd suspected something was off for months. She filled in some of the gaps, telling me about 2 other talented employees who had been let go under similarly strange circumstances over the past year. Everyone had been too afraid to speak up, worried they'd be next. Her validation gave me the confidence I needed. That night, I went home and organized everything. I created a clear, concise summary document linking each claim to the corresponding file on the USB drive. I laid it all out. The falsified reports, the stolen credit, the manipulated data, and the email chains that proved it all. The next morning, I sent a carefully worded email to the head of the department and the VP of HR, requesting an urgent meeting to discuss a serious matter of professional conduct. I kept it professional and didn't mention any names, but I made it clear it was time sensitive. They agreed to meet with me the very next day. I walked into the conference room feeling surprisingly calm. The department head and the VP of HR were there, looking serious. A few minutes later, the door opened and my former manager walked in. He had clearly been invited without knowing the topic of discussion. The moment he saw me, his confident smirk faltered. He looked confused, then angry. Before he could say anything, the department head started the meeting. I was given the floor. I didn't raise my voice or make accusations. I simply said, I believe there are some discrepancies in the reporting and management of our team that I need to bring to your attention. Then, I calmly walked them through my findings, projecting the summary document onto the screen. I presented the evidence, piece by piece, the altered budget sheets, the emails where he took credit for my project, and the correspondence showing a pattern of similar behavior with other employees. With each slide, the color drained from my manager's face. When I finished, the room was silent. The VP of HR turned to my manager and asked for an explanation. He started to stammer, trying to dismiss it all as a misunderstanding, a disgruntled employee trying to cause trouble, but the evidence was undeniable. His stories didn't line up, and he couldn't explain away the documented proof. He tried to discredit me, but my calm, organized presentation made his frantic denials look even more suspicious. He had built his reputation on lies, and now, in a quiet conference room, it was all crumbling down around him. The aftermath was swift. The company launched a full internal investigation. My ex-manager was placed on immediate leave, and within 2 weeks, he was terminated. The leadership team formally apologized to me for what had happened and for their lack of oversight. They even offered me my job back with a promotion and back pay. It was tempting, but the trust was broken. Politely, I declined. The story got around, and something unexpected happened. A competitor I had long admired reached out. Their director had heard about my work on the big client project, the real story, not my manager's version, and was impressed. They were even more impressed by how I handled the difficult situation. They offered me a senior position with more responsibility and a significant pay increase. It felt like the universe was course-correcting. I accepted the offer without hesitation. A few months have passed since then. I'm now thriving in my new role. The company culture is supportive, my work is valued, and my new boss is a true leader. My old company went through a major restructuring in that department. Sarah, my former coworker, even got a promotion to help lead the new team. She and other ex-colleagues still reach out, thanking me for speaking up. They say the entire atmosphere has changed for the better. Looking back, getting fired publicly felt like the worst day of my life. But it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to my career. It taught me a valuable lesson. When you stay patient, stay organized, and let the facts do the talking, the truth eventually speaks for itself. Thanks for watching, and remember to always stand up for what's right.